Hello BookTube, hello friends, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and for today's video I want to tell you about some middle grade books. It is currently the middle of May, and so in celebration of middle grade May, I want to tell you about the Sunshine State books from the 2019-2020 school year list. Now the Sunshine State books are a list that originates from the Florida for Media and Education Association. The acronym for that is FAME, and I will leave a link below to their website so that if you are interested in seeing next school year's list or any of the past lists or the list of any other age group, you can find that all on their website. So I got started reading the Sunshine State books when Katie was in middle school. I had an awareness of them in elementary school because I did volunteer a lot in her elementary school library, but I didn't really get the full grasp of the whole program until Katie got in middle school, and I met her middle school librarian who does some wonderful, amazing programs utilizing the Sunshine State books each year. She does a thing called Book Bowl, which you guys have probably heard me talk about, and sadly that had to be canceled this year, but she encourages the kids to read the books on the list each year. They have to read at least 3 or 4 of them before they can participate in Book Bowl, and while the kids are at Book Bowl, they answer questions, they have a contest, and we feed them the food that the characters in the books eat. So there's a little display of each book and the food from that particular book. The kids get to sample whatever they want from all of the food that's laid out. And up until this year, that was an activity that happened at the school. So that was their reward for reading at least 3 or 4 of the books. And now with COVID-19, who knows what will happen in future years, but it was a really fantastic program. So I got started reading these books when Katie was in middle school, and I have done several wrap-up videos of all the books. In fact, the first year I did a video about all the books, I had not read them all yet, and the librarian, Miss T, joined me for that video, and we talked about the books, at least what we knew of them, and I decided after that that it would be better if I read all the books and then told you about them. So that's why I've been so late in the year getting that done each year, because this year I was just kind of lazy about getting them read, and I only finally finished the 15th book at the beginning of April, and then I've had so many other things going on, I just haven't had time to get this done until now. Plus, the libraries have been closed, and I had so many other things checked out. I needed to get the videos done about those books so that I could check those books in and check these books out. It's been just a little more difficult to get this done. But I have managed to check out all 15 of the Sunshine State books for 2019-2020. The order I have them here is the same order that they are listed on the PDF that you can find on the FAME website. And that is alphabetical by title, which doesn't really make sense. There's not really any rhyme or reason for putting them alphabetical by title, but I guess they do that because they don't want to try to sway people one way or the other, because it's actually a contest. These are the Sunshine State Award nominees, and then the kids get to vote on which one they think is the best. So at the end of this video, I will tell you which one was the winner. For the kids to be able to vote, they have to read at least 3 of them, and then they can vote on their favorite. So it's not a perfect thing, because most of the kids who read these have not been able to read all of them, and therefore vote their absolute favorite out of all 15. But still, you would think that most of the kids would probably read the ones that they're most interested in. So it all comes out in the end, I think. Anyway, I have read all 15, and I will tell you my favorites. I really enjoyed reading these this year. There were a couple that I didn't get on with exactly, but of the 15 books, I rated 6 of them 5 stars. And so I will share with you which ones I rated the highest. So let's just get started. I mentioned that I got kind of lazy with reading all of these this year. It's probably just because there's just been so much going on. When I got started with these at the beginning of last summer, Emily was going into the hospital, and if you don't know, she had 3 separate surgeries over the course of the summer, starting at the end of May and going all the way to the end of August. And she was in the hospital a lot of that time. So I did have a lot of reading time, but I was also participating in the Summer Romance Book Bingo, and I was just trying to get a lot of reading done. So I realized when I went back today to look at my notes and my Goodreads reviews that there were a few of these that I didn't even write a Goodreads review on. I didn't take nearly as many notes as I did in the previous year. I never got any questions written because the book bowl got canceled before I could get any written. So because it's been a year since I read some of these, I don't have a really good memory of all of the details as I would have if I had read them all in a compacted period of time. So my apologies if I am not able to tell you a whole lot of details, but I will at least tell you if I enjoyed the book or not and whether I would recommend it, and try to give you at least a couple of reasons why I liked each book so that you could decide if you wanted to read any of these for yourself. Also, be sure and let me know in the comments below if you have already read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if any of them look particularly interesting to you. The first book on the list is 24 Hours in Nowhere by Dusty Bowling. I did rate this book 5 stars, so this is one of my top 6. The theme of this book was really about friendship and sticking up for each other in the face of dealing with a bully. The setting was very interesting. It was a desert setting, hence the name, 24 Hours in Nowhere. The book is interesting because it is set in a 24-hour period, and each chapter is an hour in that 24 hours, so that's kind of unique. I really enjoyed this book because of the friendship themes and just the way that the friends supported each other, and I would highly recommend it. The next book is The Adventurers Guild by Zach Lauren Clark and Nick Eliopoulos. I don't remember a lot of the details about this one. I did listen to it on audio, and sometimes I don't retain details as well when I've listened to something on audio, but this is the first in a sci-fi adventure series. As I recall, this is about a society where everyone lives safely in a walled-in city, and outside those walls is very dangerous. I think maybe even aliens have left monsters and scary creatures outside the city walls, and these kids are picked to go outside the city walls to accomplish different things. I can't remember exactly what now, and so that puts them in some dangerous situations. I remember enjoying the book, and this is the beginning of a series. I might have to read it again before I would continue on with the series, but I do remember enjoying it. All's Fair in Middle School by Victoria Jameson was really cute. This is actually a graphic novel about a young girl who has been homeschooled her whole life by her parents who work at a Renaissance fair, and she has decided that she is going to brave the dragons of middle school. And so it's her story of having kind of the rude awakening of what life is like in middle school, in public school, outside of the protection of her parents. She does have to deal with bullies and mean girls and things like that. And then later in the book, when those same girls show up at the Renaissance fair, then she has to kind of deal with that. And so I really enjoyed the book. I don't remember a lot of the details about it, but I did find it very enjoyable. The next book is Boy X by Dan Smith. This book was probably one of my least favorites. I only rated it 3 stars. The boy in this book has a mom who is a scientist. I think she's a genetic engineer or something like that. And he wakes up one day and he feels really strange, and nothing is quite right, but he seems to have all these heightened senses, and his mother's missing. And I don't remember exactly how all of it comes together, but I remember that I thought the premise of this sounded really good, and then in my notes I wrote down that the ending just kind of fell flat. So I did not end up enjoying this one as much. I think the story takes place in a biosphere or some kind of jungle, and I know that he has to go and find someone who's missing. I think it's his mom that's missing, and so there's some conspiracies going on and everything. So it sounded really good, but I recall that I just ended up not really enjoying it all that much. The next book is Breakout by Kate Messner. This was fantastic. And as I was reviewing my notes about it today, it occurred to me that what we are going through right now has some similarities to what the people in this book were going through, but for completely different reasons. This story is set in a prison. Our main character's dad is a warden in the state prison, and there is a breakout. So everyone at the prison and in their surrounding towns are under a type of quarantine where they have to stay inside and stay safe. Everything gets canceled, all of their events and activities and things like that, because the authorities feel like it's not safe for them to be out until these prisoners are caught. And it's so weird that I read this a year ago, and who would have thought that we would be going through a similar type of thing a year later? So it's really interesting, but that wasn't even what was good about the book. It is written kind of epistolary in a way. There's some diary entries, there's some letters, there's various things in the format, and even a few graphics. And the reason for that is because the teachers have assigned their students to write things for a time capsule. So they're stuck at home and they are writing and doing all these things for a time capsule that is to be put together. And so that is the venue that the author uses to be able to tell about what all is happening with this prison break and what they're experiencing being stuck at home and the things they can and can't do and things like that. I just really, really enjoyed this book. In fact, I think of all the reviews that I did write about these books, the review I wrote of this one was the best one. So I would encourage you to go and look at my review. I just thought it was a fantastic book. I thought it was just a really great idea, a great premise, and the themes that are involved in the book are really what set it apart, though. And just read my review if you want to know a little bit more about it, but I would highly recommend this book. But this next book is my absolute favorite for this whole list. This is Captain Superlative. It's by J.S. Puller. For this one, you might need some tissues, but it's totally worth it. It is such a fantastic book. I absolutely loved it. This book, kind of like The Summer I Saved the World in 65 Days by Michelle Weber Hurwitz, will make you want to be a better person. It will make you want to achieve world peace and all of that. It's just so good. Our main character sort of becomes the sidekick for this very interesting person in her school who comes to school dressed in a superhero costume. And again, it's so funny that because when I was reading the description, I was reminded of the fact that her superhero costume consists of a mask, a different kind of mask than what we're wearing today, an eye mask, but rubber gloves, and then also tights and a cape and everything. And this person comes to school and tries to make a difference. And so our main character is observing all of this and then sort of gets roped into participating with Captain Superlative in what Captain Superlative is trying to do. And I don't want to tell you any more than that. I just want you to read it. It's so wonderful. I absolutely loved this book. Here's another really good one, Elephant Secret by Eric Walters. The first thing I want to caution you about this book is don't read the Goodreads description. I didn't, thankfully, or I would have been mad, because the Goodreads description totally gives away what I think is a great twist. It's a little unrealistic, but it's still a great twist. And I would have been so mad if I had read that ahead of time. So don't read the Goodreads description. But this book, if you love elephants or animals at all, or zoos or anything, I think you would enjoy this book. I think the treatment of elephants was fantastic. I think that the author did a great job, because I know there's some controversy in how elephants are treated, maybe not so much in zoos, but in circuses and things like that, and this doesn't deal with any of that. This book takes place in an elephant sanctuary that's being run by a father and daughter, and I don't even want to tell you any more than that. It's just really, really good. Now, you may or may not like the sort of unrealistic part that's kind of a twist, but that just adds a fun element to the book. I think just if you love animals in general, especially elephants, I think that you would enjoy the book. And I don't think you would have any problem with how the elephants are treated in this book. I think it's very well done. I put this book off till the end, and I'm not sure why, because it's by Michelle Weber Hurwitz, who wrote one of my favorite middle grade books, The Summer I Saved the World in 65 Days. And this book is called Ethan Marcus Stands Up. I did not like it as much as The Summer I Saved the World, but it's still a very good book. It is about a young boy who decides that he's going to make a stand. He has such difficulty sitting in a desk all day in school. He can't concentrate by the end of the day, and he asks his teacher if he could just stand for the last period. And the teacher thinks that's distracting and insists that he sit, and so he ends up in trouble. And it's just the story of what he does to try to make a difference. And I thought it was a really good idea, and I liked it a lot. And I think there really is something to this whole idea, because I remember several years ago when I was working in the Awana program at our church, and I would be helping the kids learn and recite their memory verses. And I had two different boys at different times who absolutely could not concentrate if they had to sit down and sit still. One of them could really excel and learn his verses and say them if he was coloring at the same time. And I'm so glad that I discovered that. And then another boy could recite his verses if he was sitting under the table. And, you know, these are just things that you discover as you work with kids, that not everyone learns and excels in the same way. And I thought this book is a really good eye-opening experience to just help remind us of that and help us to think of alternative ways that we can help kids, because not everyone has the same learning style or the same attention span. So Michelle Weber Hurwitz, you did a great job on this one. Still, I love Summer I Saved the World. Those of you out there have never read The Summer I Saved the World in 65 Days, it's up there with Captain Superlative. It's one of those books that makes you want to change the world, and I think if everyone would read it and follow those principles, we would achieve world peace. Here's another one that I rated 5 stars. This is Greetings from Witness Protection by Jake Burt. And this is a little unrealistic, but still I thought it was a very fun story. This is about a girl who was in foster care. She's a pickpocket. She's been in and out of various foster homes. She just couldn't seem to click with anyone. And the government comes to her and asks her to join in with a family who is going into witness protection, because they are a family of 3, and the witness protection people want to change their family dynamic and make them a family of 4 and make that family look different, and therefore decrease the likelihood that they will be found by the criminals who are after them. And because she's a streetwise kid and is very able to take care of herself, they think that she will not only be able to take care of herself, but could also perhaps help take care of this family. I don't think in real life the government would actually put a teenage girl in that position. Still, the idea is kind of interesting and exciting, and I thought it made for a really good fictional book premise. So for that reason, I really enjoyed it. I thought the family dynamic was great. I just thought it was a really good book. The next one is Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake. This is a story about a young girl who is feeling more attracted to the same sex than the opposite sex. Now, I didn't really care for this book that much because I'm really not a fan of romantic explorations of any type in middle grade books. And so this book really was not something that I would gravitate towards, but it has a huge fan base on Goodreads, and a lot of people have rated it a solid 4 stars or higher. So it is very popular in the LGBT community if you're looking for a book like that. The other thing in the book is that it features a tornado and destruction by a tornado. And that part was tough to read about because I grew up in Oklahoma and I used to live in fear of tornadoes. And I thankfully never had to go through one or experience one, but it's a real thing, and I have seen the destruction that tornadoes can do. So if that is a concern for you, then you might not want to read this for that reason. But that scenario sets the tone for the book and sets the stage for what happens in this young girl's life. And so, like I said, it's not really something that I would gravitate towards, but it's on the list, so I read it. This book, Knockout by K.A. Holt, is actually book 2 in a duology. I don't know if there's going to be any more in the series or not. So I went ahead and read the first one first. It's called House Arrest. I then read this one, and I would have to say after reading both of them that I think it would be perfectly fine to read this one first. But if both of these books look interesting to you, then I think it would probably be better to read the first one first. So it's really up to you. Both of these books are written in verse. This book is about a young man who wants to be a boxer. And because he had a heart condition when he was very young, his mother and family really want to shelter him and take care of him and not let him do anything that would damage his health. And so that's his story. Now, the first book, House Arrest, is about his older brother. When the main character of this story was a baby, we get to see his health condition and how his brother tried to take care of him and some of the trouble that he got into, but he makes some choices that perhaps were not the best choice. So both books are very good. They're written in verse, very easy to read, and I would recommend them both. On every Sunshine State list, there's at least one creepy book. This year there's 2, and this is one of them. This is Night Books. This one's kind of a fantasy adventure about a boy who tells ghost stories. I think it was compared to the Scheherazade stories because he's been captured by a witch and he has to tell her a story every night in order to stay alive. This one has several twists and turns, and while I'm not a huge fan of creepy books, I did enjoy this one. This one I just read recently. It's based on a true story. It's called Playing Atari with Saddam Hussein by Jennifer Roy with Ali Fadil. And it is the story of Ali Fadil when he was a young boy living in Iraq at the time that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. And if you are familiar with that part of history, there are several countries involved. I think the U.S. gets involved. This is the story from Ali's perspective, living in Iraq, and I thought it was very good. It's not a long book at all. The majority of the book takes place from Wednesday, January 16th, 1991 to Thursday, February 28th, 1991, 44 days later. And then there is an epilogue or an afterword that takes place 14 years later, so that we get to see what has happened with Ali in his life 14 years after this war, and how he came to meet the author and how she came to write his story. And it is just a very interesting story. I was a little bit worried that I would not enjoy it just based on the content, but I thought it was very well done, and I would recommend this for a child who maybe is doing some kind of a school report on that war and wants to do some research. This is just a very well told story, and it's very interesting. It is heartfelt, and I thought it was really very good. This is another 5-star book, and you might wonder why I would rate a book about food competitions 5 stars, but I thought this book was very entertaining. I read this last year when Emily was in the hospital, and this is called Sliders by Pete Houtman. This is about a boy who wants to be a competitive eater. Now, the competitive eating part I thought was a lot of fun, but the main reason that I loved this book is because he has a brother who has autism, and I thought that the way the character with autism was written and treated was fantastic. So if you have an interest in reading fiction books with autistic characters, this is a very, very good one, and I will leave it at that and let you experience it for yourself. And then the last book is the other creepy one. This one I remember enjoying, but it's pretty creepy. It's called Small Spaces by Catherine Arden. It's the first in a series. The second one is out. It's called Dead Voices. But this is a creepy tale about kids on a school bus going on a field trip. and getting to this place that is basically haunted, and there are creepy scarecrows that are trying to take over people. So it's a little creepier than my taste, but not over the top. If you like horror and you like middle grade books, then you might want to check this one out. So just to sum up, I think my top 2 favorites on this list of 15 would be these two. Captain Superlative is Superlative, and Breakout is the most thought-provoking. If you want to check out my reviews of either of these and some of the reviews of other people, then definitely by all means do that. Or if you trust me and you want to just pick these up without reading anything about them, then that's great too. I said at the beginning of the video that I would let you know who the winner was for this set of books, and the winner is Greetings from Witness Protection by Burt. I did really enjoy this book. I rated it 5 stars, so even though it wasn't my absolute favorite from the list, I will not argue with the result. And I also neglected to mention that this list of books are geared towards 6th to 8th grade. The Florida Association for Media and Education also publishes a list of books for 3rd to 5th grade, and also Florida Teen Reads, and I believe a list for younger elementary. So it's kind of a recommended reading list for each age group of students, and then an award winner is chosen from each list of books. So as usual, I have enjoyed the experience of reading these 15 books, and I'm looking forward to reading the books on next school year's list. That list was announced at the end of April, and I will leave a link in the description to that list. I have put them all on my Goodreads, and as usual, I don't recognize any of them yet, but I'm sure that some of them are destined to be favorites. So as I read them, I will talk about them here on my channel, and then next year, hopefully a little earlier in the year, I will do a video like this and review all of them for you. So that's all I have for this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books or if you plan to read any of these books, and I will see you soon. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.